Bill?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Friday morning group. Namaste. My name is Bill Free. Most of you know that. And what I was saying, Nancy, is that I started going to a trainer last week, a physical trainer, to get a little bit fit, getting ready for the Camino. And you know, this is like 1 hour of like, to me, it's like marathoning, exercising with a coach right there. And I'm 15 minutes in and I'm going, I'm just breathing real heavy. Then I sit down for about 10 seconds and she says, Bill, put on the game face. Put on the game face. Okay. So everyone put on your game face. Welcome to the Friday morning group. And I'm happy to be here this morning. And today we're going to talk about I'm going to talk about hearing God's voice and making decisions from there. And I'm really interested in this topic, the way it came through, because I don't know what I'm going to talk about until I get here. Somebody says, well, who's speaking on Wednesday? And since Lisa's in England and Kelly's got family coming in, somebody else has, I'm it again, and I'm happy to share from this place of what affects my experience in life, in hearing God's voice and making decisions from there. It's kind of how do you know when you're hearing God's voice, and how do you know that the decisions are coming from that place of God's voice, of listening from there? And there is a way to know that, and it's also a felt, visceral experience. I'm real interested in seeing what Spirit has to share with me that I am going to share with you this morning, and we'll be doing that in just a minute. And hey, babe, Lisa is in England doing a conference with Jennifer Hadley and Corinne Zupko and the Course in Miracles guys over there in Birmingham, England. So if you're watching, I love you, and I'll see you in a couple of days, because she'll be right back here. And we'll be doing the conference in Boston. Who's going to Boston? Everybody's going to Boston except the cameraman woman, Treese. Treese, glad to have you back. Welcome back to the camera crew. I have 4 announcements. That was one, that Treese is back. And Lisa is in England. And the Boston conference is next week, and we'll be coming live stream from the conference next Friday morning. They've given us a separate room for the conference. We're going to take all our video equipment and sound equipment down there, and we're going to live stream from there. And you're going to hear some of the directors of the board for the Teachers of God Foundation, and you're going to hear from Andy and whoever else that we can conjure up to share with you their experience of the Christ mind, of the embodiment of Christ consciousness, which is what we're going to talk about. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Come on in. We've started. So for the Boston conference that starts next week, we don't have tickets left anymore. We had some tickets that we were selling for people, and then we turned them all back in to the conference organizer. You can probably get tickets from Community Miracles Center if you go to their website or call them. The tickets are going to be $5.99 because we're in the last week of the conference, and the ticket prices went up, I think, a couple of months ago to $5.99. And you can get your tickets there. And thank you guys and gals, beautiful beings that donated tickets. We donated through your desire to share your abundance and your generosity. We donated, I think, about 8 tickets for people that couldn't go, who wanted to give that blessing and that experience to people who wanted to go, but their finances weren't working out that way. So thank you guys for donating your generosity to those that wanted to go and now can because of you. And just want to mention that the presenter series is, we're working on the next, actually Lisa has her third deliverable goes out. No, it just went out. Her third deliverable just went out Wednesday. Her fourth deliverable is already in the queue, and it goes out next Wednesday. And then we have Jacqueline Eckert, who is the Vice President of Awakening Together, and she'll be our presenter for June. And then I think Robert Perry is July. And I can't wait to see what his content looks like. And the cart opens for the presenter series on May 28th, and it's open for 3 days. And if you guys are interested, that's the time you have to get in. You can go on our waiting list at teachersofgod.org and sign up. And then as soon as the cart opens, we'll send you a notification that the cart is open. And then the last announcement is that the 40-day group starts up again as a group June the 6th, and it's so much fun to see what happens in the 40-day as a group. It's just amazing. The group seems to have like this unspoken energy and connection. And what we've started doing with the group launches, Lisa and I and Cindy Krupp do a live, like a kickoff for the opening group. And we Lisa gives some tips to those that are starting the 40-day for the first time or whatever, the 10th time, doesn't matter. But she gives an opening kind of a pep talk and just something to begin your 40-day journey with. And then she and I and James Clayton, he's not here, but many of us did the Camino last year. Oh, Julie Levin's going on the Camino. So many of us are going. We're doing the Camino again this year, 150 miles, and it is. Do you remember walking? I walked it with Andy and Bonnie and some, I don't know, and no one else here did the Camino with us. But when we did the Camino, I remember walking with you guys and thinking, this is the most fun experience that I've ever had in my life. And that was when I was 64 years old. So I'm a year older now. It's going to be another one of those experiences. I know, right? I signed up for the Social Security thing, the Medicare thing, right? Isn't that cool? My brother didn't do it. You have to, if you're 64 and you don't sign up within 3 months of your 65th birthday, you pay a penalty for the rest of your life. On Medicare, yes, they have this like a little 3-month window, and if you don't sign up for Medicare in that window, it costs you an extra 10 or 12%. So I signed up for that. I'm very excited about that. I never thought I would be so excited about it. But I also like meeting deadlines, I also want to like, okay, don't forget that. So anyway, the Camino is coming up. So Lisa and I and Cindy Krupp are going to do a kickoff for the 40-day before we go on the Camino, and then we're going to congratulate you for finishing the Camino sometime in July when you're finished. And we're looking forward to doing that. If you have friends that haven't done the 40-day program, go to teachersofgod.org, get on the waiting list. It's already growing. The last group was 900 registrants. I know, for the 40-day, and we have hundreds right now that are signed up for the June 6th launch. It's so much fun. And it's something that we continue. 5 years in, we're doing the 40-day program. Over 30,000 people have done it. And we still have the same inspiration, the same love, and the same excitement for those that are doing it, because we know what happens. When you do the 40-day, even if you've been a Course in Miracles student for 20, 30 years, all of a sudden you're like, whoa! It's like you got on board with something that was the sort of interesting to you when you bought the books, or maybe you went to study groups. But all of a sudden, after the 40-day, Lisa has a way of communicating those ideas in a way that you just like agree with it. She just like comes right into your space, And now you have this Lisa thing going on, and you love it because she presents it in such a understandable way, a way that makes sense and doesn't feel religious. It doesn't feel like weird. It just feels like, oh, this is comfortable. So that's the 40-day, and that's the end of our announcements. And thank you all for being with us today. And for you guys that came in late, just so you know, we won't be in this room next week. We'll be at the conference in Boston, and we'll be broadcasting from right there. And it's open mic, and I have 3 or 4 people that will be doing the open mic. I won't be there. I'll be helping to set it all up, and then I'm going into a meeting, and Kelly Russell, Cindy Krupp, Bonnie Kimball, Andy Kimball, all the Kelly and Chris and our board members will be there sort of making it all happen. And I look forward to watching the replay on that. I'm not going to be able to be there with you guys, but show up, live streamers, and you'll be showing up at the Boston conference. And yeah, that's what we're doing. I think what we'll do is we'll have a meet and greet, everyone. We'll stand up and greet each other. And then when we come back, Andy's going to give us the thought for the day. And we'll be right back, live streamers. Thanks, Andy. My brother. Everybody's been late. Namaste. See you at the conference. Right?
I know, I lost
That's a big party. This is a big party.
No, I'm on part-time, but it's just so much food and activity, you know, like, it's weird energy. I think I'm gonna go pass food out and watch that be there. So thank you.
My new Facebook.
I've been going to the gym. I'm doing 1 hour workouts. Yeah. But I haven't started walking yet. I am doing it. I'm working out. What about you? Are you? Namaste, live streamer. Good to have you with us today. Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here. We're going to get started. Live streamers, looking forward to having you guys come down to Boston with us. It's the first time that we've that we've taken the Friday morning group on the road. Funny, right? I offered to, and I may surprise us. I may live stream my event and Lisa's event. That they won't let me. I asked if I could, like, live stream the opening, and they said no. Too many people have to sign off on it. But we were given permission to live stream our 2 events, so I may live stream our talks, at least one of them. We'll see what happens with that. But before I get started, because I'm going to be your speaker this morning, I'm going to talk about hearing God's voice and making decisions from there. And before we do that, I want to bring my brother from another mother, Andy Kimball, up, and he's going to share with us the thought for today.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Andy.
I'd like to thank the hair and makeup people.
That's what I love about Andy. He's got that.
Today's date is May 17th, and I'm reading from Cafe Gratitude, as we do every week. And the saying is from, hope I don't mess the name up, Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley, sorry. And the quote is, "Most human beings have an almost infinite capacity for taking things for granted." That's like a fortune cookie. And the question for today is, it's a good one, what do you care about? You can all take a minute to ponder that. I care about, I don't know, everything. Everybody. I don't know. Shirley. That's it. Come on, Bill. It's all you.
All right. Can I see that? That was, I like that quote. That was actually a prophetic kind of a quote. And May 17th, today's May 17th. Does anyone know what May 19th is? May 19th is my birthday. I'll be 65 in 2 days. I know, right? So cool. I can't believe I'm 65 and just, I don't know about you guys, and I know why, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't feel any different than I did when I was 15, looking through these body's eyes, and I know why, because the eye that looks through the body's eyes never changes. The eye that looks through these body's eyes is the infinite being that knows itself as self, as spirit, as presence, as what God is. And let's see, I'm going to go back to what Andy said, because it's May 17th. Most human beings have an almost infinite capacity for taking things for granted because we have an infinite capacity. And I'm glad that it's almost infinite, because otherwise we'd be here for whatever forever is. We'd be in the dream, and it feels so much nicer, so much more agreeable to be awake from the dream, right? So much more agreeable, because when you're awake from the dream, you recognize that these experiences that used to have a hold on you, that used to own you, you can step away from those emotional attachments. You can step away from those things that were believed that keep you a prisoner to the experience. You can step far enough away from it so it no longer has the charge, and then pretty soon it's just an event. Pretty soon it's just an event that's occurring that you are just saying, okay, and so it is. And you're not letting it give rise to an experience and then attaching your I am identity to it. The other thing was, what do you care about? Everything. Actually, Andy said it for me, and then I'm going to add my bit on the end. Everything and nothing. Everything and nothing, because I care about everything, because everything is an aspect of what I am. And I care about nothing because none of it has the power to keep me attached to the meaning that I've given to it. None of it does. Today we're going to talk about, or I'm going to talk about, I don't mean we, but, I forgot to introduce Bill Free. So, since all of my cohorts are out doing other things today, I'm going to announce Bill Free. So, everyone, please give a warm welcome to Bill Free. And he's got the great one-liners. I have to come out of the box a little bit, like Jack in the Box. Today, I'm going to talk about hearing God's voice and making decisions from there. And I have probably 100 different requests, different questions about things that people want to hear us talk about up here. And one of them is, how do I know God's will for me? How can I stay in alignment? How can I have better relationships with my friends and family? How can I share A Course in Miracles with other people? And all of those things. You know, the hearing God's voice and knowing when it is God's voice, and then acting from there it does have some requirements. It does have some requisites. And first, I think we have to determine if we're hearing God's voice. To hear God's voice or to make decisions from there, first we have to kind of consider who or what is God. Right? What is God? Who is God? God's not, I mean, most of us think of God as being, well, God. But it's not a God. You know, it's not that entity that is ominous, and it is omnipotent. It is everywhere in all things, because that's what I am. And when I say that's what I am, that is what you am. Also, I know it's not good English, but that is the truth. It is what you am. I am what you am. And when Moses got the signal many moons ago, 5,000 plus, and the voice came into his head, he didn't recognize that it was his own I am that was speaking to him, that said, tell them I am that I am sent you. And his own voice in the present, in presence, was speaking to him in this telepathic, audible way that gave a transmission of his understanding that then he communicated to Egypt to have the slaves freed. And they didn't, I mean, first of all, they laughed at him, but then somehow all those plagues happened, and, you know, all that crazy stuff happened. And then he ushered 1 million Jews out of Egypt for, I think, 40 years. It's a long time. But where we are now, where we have way better information than the tablets that Moses had, the 10 Commandments, that he also screwed that up. But we won't hold that against Moses. I mean, I love Moses. I love the Old Testament teachings. It was just wrong, most of it. And that's just my opinion. But I only say that because I was a Christian for 20 plus years, and I followed the Old Testament. I followed the New Testament. I was in love with Jesus. And as I thought he was a man, I thought he was like this entity. I didn't know Jesus like I know him now. And Jesus isn't really even a him, just like God isn't a him. Jesus is a symbol for the love of God. Jesus is a symbol for the truth that came manifest in a man they call Jesus, that recognized the truth of what he is and what we all are. And he called it Christ. And that Christ was where mankind, humankind, knows itself as what God is. But Jesus, I mean, Jesus doesn't take it personal. If you don't believe in Jesus or you don't hold him dear to your heart, he doesn't really care. He just wants you to have the same awakening experience that he had. That's all. None of us need to take it personal. And I mean, I still have a love for Jesus, but I have a love for what he did. I have a love and an appreciation and a huge gratitude for setting me free, first of all, from drugs, from a teenage use of drugs into my young adult life. Jesus, that symbol of righteousness, that symbol of truth, freed me from drug use and alcohol and all of those things when I needed it the most, and held me in a place until I could find A Course in Miracles, because I questioned the Christian dogma around the teachings of Jesus. Like mostly, how is God fear and love at the same time? That one didn't add up to me. How you'd fear God and love your neighbor as yourself. Somehow that didn't add up. And then my biggest thing was, and I'm not gay, I've never had an idea about being gay, but I have a brother that's gay, and I always was wondering, you know, when Christians would talk about that homosexuality is a abomination to God, and I would always question that and go, well, how? Because the two main teachings of Jesus was the two greatest commandments is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and spirit, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And I never understood how in the hell you love your neighbor as yourself if you're judging him as being an abomination to God. So that helped me, because it really put a great big question mark right there. And it was that question mark that caused me to start wondering, is that the truth? Is that really true? And then that questioning led me to being sort of looking at the Kabbalah, which was it was the Jewish mysticism that came into the known world in the 14th century, but it came from something else called the Zohar, which was Jewish mysticism that was closely secret. It was guarded and secret, and it was only permitted for Jews, rabbis that were 40 years old and married, and rabbis to actually learn the teachings of the Zohar, which is mystical Judaism. And that's what the Kabbalah came out as in the 14th century when this guy in France was a mystic that spent his whole life on an island, and he was given a download of the Zohar, the teachings of Jewish mysticism, and it became the Kabbalah. And I picked up the Kabbalah when I started having these questions. I'm going, what's the Kabbalah? And what about this science of the mind? And I started being interested in all of these other things. And all of a sudden, A Course in Miracles dropped in my lap. And when I opened up in the disappearance of the universe, and when I opened up the disappearance of the universe and then the Course in Miracles, I knew right away that all of that Christian stuff was just, it was all myth. It was all made up, mostly from men. Another funny thing in the church, if you went to church, if you had any connection with the Baptist church or evangelical churches, those churches had one of their hundreds of rules, but one of the rules is that women couldn't speak in the church. Women were not allowed to speak, and at one time they had to keep their head covered for some crazy reason. All of these made-up ideas made up by men. You know, men that wanted to control. First of all, it started with Constantine, the Roman emperor, that wanted to control this thing called Christianity, or these Christians. He wanted to control these Christians, so they came up with this. They had this big meeting called the Council of Nicaea, and they determined what was going to be followed and what was not going to be followed, and they called it the canon. That's where the books of the Old Testament that they liked and agreed with, and the books of the writings that Paul wrote that came into the Old and the New Testament and became the King James Bible that we know of today. And that was the law of the land for that time period. And if you owned any kind of writings, any kind of scripture that was different from those two, and you didn't burn it, then they put you in the lion pit to be like entertainment for the Romans. And that's what happened in that day. So a lot of that material got lost. And thankfully, people that kept it going, the Gnostics kept it going, and other teachings kept it going. And then in 1949, they found the Dead Sea Scrolls that unearthed I don't know how many books of scripture and things that happened during that time, but it's called the Nag Hammadi Library that was unearthed in 1949 saying, there's more to it than that. And when all of that stuff started showing up in my world, I'm going, well, if that happened, then if that's true, and this council of people determined what was in the Bible, how can we know what to believe or what's true? So it gave me a license to be open-minded, and my open-mindedness led me right to the Course in Miracles. So hearing God's voice is, first of all, who is God for you? Anyone want to answer that? What God is to you? Laura does. What is God for Laura?
God to me is everything. It's my source energy. It is in me. It's around me. It's in everything. It's in this chair. It's in you. It's every single thing of the universe. It is my source energy, and that's what I connect into. And that is pure love, pure light, and that's where my peace comes from, when I connect into that source. If I connect into the other side of me, I'll call it my ego mind. That's not good. That's not God.
Yes. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you for that explanation. I think everyone in here can agree with that explanation. And that other side of us is really just an image that we have made. It's an image that has an identity with your name on it. That's about it. Because if it doesn't have your name on it, and if you can't use memory to find it, then if you're using memory to find it, it's the image that you made and the conditioned idea about what you think you are because your parents gave you a name, and you look in the mirror, you go to the bathroom, and you find out a gender, and you have all of these things, and so you think this is what you are. You think this body is what you are. And we are so far more than that. And that's where the freedom comes in, is because we recognize that not only, and this could be considered blasphemy when you say that I am God. I am God. Now, Christians would say, and that's okay. Bless your heart. If you're a Christian, I love you and I bless you. And I don't mean to rattle your cage too much. If you get your cage rattled, it usually causes you to seek out an answer. And if you're seeking with your whole heart, the answer will come. That's just what love does. And since we are love, love is only just seeking itself. So hearing God's voice and making decisions from there, it really has three parts. 3 damn parts. Right? The first damn part is the thing that got us into this experience that is not an accident. This is not an accident. God didn't make an accident happen. I mean, if you're an eternal being, right? You never were born, you never die. You're just an infinite being, which is the truth of what you are. Why not take a little side road down to earth and have a human experience for 1,000,000 years? Why not? I mean, what else are you doing, right? You got a date doing something else? Well, the thing is that we are so powerful in what we can accomplish as God presence, that we can make one hell of an experience, literally. We can make up a hell and then forget that we're not from here. And that's what happened. What happened was we had an idea to have a different experience for a moment, and we created a whole world and cosmos. And I know that sounds crazy and it sounds wild, but I know that I can't say that I know it to be true, that I saw it all happen, but I know that these ideas make sense to me. That's the best I can say. And what happens is the single thing that caused us to have this experience that I don't feel was a mistake. I think we didn't realize, we didn't have, there was a whatever it was, a momentary instant of wondering what would it like to be separate or to have a different experience, caused a whole world, a dream world experience in the mind of God that we are. And we took the infinite being, the oneness that we are, and we refracted it into a single idea that made us finite. Instead of being infinite, we refracted ourselves into this idea, and in order to have that experience of less than everything, less than the allness that we are, we had to become what we're not. And in order to do that, we had to forget momentarily what we really are. And thankfully, and I can only go by what the Course teaches and other mystical teachings, is that into, where it says that, the Course says, into eternity where all is one, there crept a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. In other words, he took that idea seriously and became the experience that he was thinking about. And at the same moment, and this is where it came in, this is where it brought us into the experience of hell. In the same moment, the Son of God or the Christ or consciousness got fearful. Oh my God, what have I done? Fear was born. So fear was born into the mind of the infinite. And now we have fear that has impregnated itself into the human consciousness, which was a product of the infinite. So the first thing that we did to come here was we had the desire to be separate from our source or to have a different experience. That's the first thing that brought us here, was desire. And the same intensity is necessary to leave or to stay here and know what you are. Know what you are as love. Know what you are as God. Have the experience of your beingness. It requires the same thing that brought you here, the intensity of the desire to know thyself. That's why in the New Testament it says, many are called, few choose to listen, because it takes great willingness. It takes, you have to want this return to your love, self. You have to want this return to your identity as God created you more than anything. You have to want it more than anything. That's why there's 7 billion people on the planet, and only a small fraction of the beings that are on the planet have awakened to the truth of their I am, of their knowing that they are what God is. And that's why if everyone, when this thing flips, and the 100th monkey syndrome, when this thing flips, this world's going to change overnight. You think computers change the world? When consciousness comes of age, and it's not anything to be fearful of, because you know what comes with consciousness? I know what to do at all times. I know exactly what to do that's in harmony with divine flow, and divine flow is got this. Because as you know, when you're in the flow, everything goes your way, right? And it works out. Everything works out. And it works out for everyone. It doesn't just work out for you. And that poor schmuck, he's hating it over there. It works out for everyone. So in that 100th monkey idea, I'm not concerned about it, because everything's going to happen at one time, and God is on the field, so to speak. But so the first thing that we have to do to return to the experience of knowing what we are, which allows us to have the experience of hearing God's voice all day long, all through the day. Workbook lesson 49, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. That is one of the greatest workbook lessons that you can read. And just marinate in that workbook lesson. God's voice speaks to me all through the day because he's your voice, and it's not a he. And that's why when we get to, when I come closer to closing, we're going to be talking about letting go of the he pronouns, letting go of the pronoun, letting go of the personal, the name of Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the he, the we, the they, the I, and just be as God created you. The beingness of pure presence, of awareness, reveals to you this. It reveals to you this self that you are. It goes beyond desire. Desire got you here, and desire gets you home when you come to that place, as I know all of us have. And you wouldn't be live streaming every week. You wouldn't be opening up A Course in Miracles or other spiritual traditions, other ideas, seeking for love, if you didn't have a desire to know the self, to return home, to know your identity. And you have to make a decision. This requires that you make one decision above all else. I want to know thyself, or above all else, I want to see. And that single desire is the resurrection of the Son of God. It's the resurrection of the mind that thought it was separate, and now just a little bit of interest in that idea, in that wanting, in that desire, and then a decision. And this is where our one remaining freedom in this world, as a separate mind, or a mind that believes that it's separate, our one remaining freedom in this world is our freedom of choice, our freedom of decision. We can make a decision because we have dominion over all things, and that's where the Old Testament, it got a lot of things right. It just got a handful of things wrong that sent us down a path of crazy land for Christianity. But it got a few things right, and one of the things it got right was that we are made in the image and the likeness of God, because we are God. Just like the current in the ocean is made as the image and the likeness of the ocean, because it is the ocean. That's the same metaphor. And when it says that in Genesis, when it says that we are made in the image and the likeness of God, it's just transmitting to us that there's no place where God is and we're not, and we are the same as what God is. And when we want to return to that above all else, when we want to return to that knowing of our being, like, what am I here for? What am I? What is this world all about? First, it takes desire, that I want it more than anything. And Jesus gave a reference to that in when he talked about the rich young ruler, said, Rabbi, how can I enter into the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus said back to him in the story in the New Testament, he said, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. And he didn't mean that literally. He meant that you need to loose yourself from everything that is of value in this world as a person, so that you can have the truth of what you are. You have to let go of everything that you have an attachment to, only temporarily, only momentarily, so that you can ignite the same desire that caused you to go to sleep and dream of this world, so that you can ignite the desire to return to your I amness, where you never left. And The second thing that we need to do here is that we need to keep our attention on the awareness of our experience. We need to keep our attention. If we keep our attention on the objects of experience, if we keep our attention on the things that we want from this world, on the things that we deserve, this is a ladder, because you definitely do deserve to live your inheritance as God created you, to live as in the holiness of your being. But it doesn't be, it sort of tricks the ego. The ego actually starts you on this path of awakening. And then you realize, the ego starts to realize, oh my God, I don't like the way this feels. This is getting uncomfortable. I'm losing my identity in this experience of awakening. And it's like the moth to the flame. The closer the moth gets to the flame, the closer we get to the light, the less the personal self-identity we connect with, and we're losing that reference of the personal self-identity the closer we get to the light. And as the closer we get to the light, what happens is we start to replace those beliefs that made us that identify as the person. We start to more identify as the spirit, as the presence, as the I am. And the awareness of your experience, what is aware of your experience? What's the witness of that experience? Becomes alive. It starts to become more real than the person identity that uses objects to identify with itself. It starts to recognize that you are the subject, and this object is not what you are. You're aware of that. And as you rest in this experience of being aware of your experience, what is aware of this experience right now is what is a memory that you had when you were 12 years old. It's the same awareness that looked in the mirror then as the same awareness that looks in the mirror right now. That awareness that is aware of all experience in your life. It is infinite being. That is awareness. And when you think of God, you can think of that. When you think of God, you can think of awareness. When you think of your holiness, my holiness envelops everything that I see. That holiness is your awareness of your experience. And the body doesn't have to die for you to have this understanding. And this understanding gives you that connection that's closer to you than your breath. And when you close your eyes and you ask yourself, does this awareness have an age? Does this awareness have a gender? Is this awareness aware of body sensations? Does this awareness have a name other than just being aware of itself? You can open your eyes if you had them closed, but this is your own direct proof that you are not what you thought that you were. That you are not the body, but you're aware of all the experiences that occur. And there's no place that this awareness was born, and there's no place that it dies. This awareness is the spirit, the presence. And when you talk about hearing God's voice, when you drop into the awareness, you're shifting from perception to knowledge. You're shifting from the perception of the outside world that sees everything and identifies everything and itself as an object of experience. Even other people, when you're looking at other human beings, you're looking at those as objects of experience. But when you step back into the awareness of the experience and let the awareness include those things, let the awareness include the objects of experience, it's one with those objects. It's just what Laura said a moment ago when she talked about what her definition of what God is that chair right there, too. This is what God is. This is what God is. This is what God is. And God is aware of all of that. God awareness knows itself as I. And it's even before the I, God presence is. And then when we put the I am, we've entered into time and space. It's like a doorway where you have a doorway here and your I over here before you come into time and space. And then your I am is over here. I am. Put your name on it. But it's I, you come through the door of time and space, am. I am. And now that we have this understanding, we can recognize that I am spirit. We're no longer identifying only as the body. We're identifying as I am. And we cease to speak. God is, and we cease to speak. And if you stop right there, you're in the identification of the being, of the self. I am. And even take off the I am, and then take off the I. And that's what God is. Because God has no name, really. God is just a religious name that we gave to something that we didn't quite understand. But when you think of this, hearing God's voice is no more than resting in your own awareness of your experience. And that's why in Workbook Lesson 40, there was one. Okay, so this is where this becomes important in practicing this understanding. Practice it because you're living in a world right now where your mind is conditioned to the identification as the person. And we also operate from there. However, when you learn to see things with what the Course calls Christ vision, what non-duality calls awareness, just being aware of being aware. And that's the same thing as Christ vision. And Christ vision, once you develop a new default, once you find your new default of seeing things from knowledge, I'll put perception over here, from knowledge, when you see things from knowledge, it's because you know it. You know what you know. You know it because you are aware of it. That is, this experience cannot be happening without you being aware of it. And perception says, everything that I see with the body's eyes is telling me what I am. So you perceive your experience by things that happened to you in the past, or things that you read, or things that you believe, and you perceive a world based on what your body's eyes see. When you live in knowledge, it's because in the place of knowing, it's because you have rested momentarily in the experience of awareness, and all experience is known from that place of awareness. And that is how you're knowing your experience versus perceiving your experience. And in Workbook Lesson 158, it says, it gives a one-line little description of Christ vision. I can tell you what it says, but I want to read it so I get it exactly. It says, Christ's vision has one law. It does not look upon a body and mistake it for the Son whom God created. It beholds a light beyond the body, an idea beyond what can be touched. This is the awareness of your experience. When you have to make a shift from perception to knowledge to see beyond appearances, to see with the experience of awareness. You have to momentarily allow awareness to be known as just awareness, and then you include the body into the experience. Like right now, if you're listening, there's an awareness of the voice that's being heard. There is awareness, and there's awareness sort of has a general gaze of experience. Awareness does not label or identify, because awareness just is. And the workbook lessons in the Course in Miracles, all the first 75 workbook lessons are training the mind to see beyond appearances, beyond the body's eyes. There's a really good one, workbook lesson 33 is a really good one that talks about in these practice periods. This workbook lesson is there is another way of looking at the world. Today's idea is an attempt to recognize that you can shift your perception of the world in both its outer and inner aspects. So in workbook lesson, these early workbook lessons, even though we think that, I don't really know what they're doing, and they're mind training, we talk about the mind training of the workbook lessons of the Course, they're teaching us to see differently without using the body's eyes. They're teaching us to be aware of our experience. And it's just not using those words or that language. But he says a full 5 minutes should be devoted to the morning and evening applications. In these practice periods, the idea should be repeated as often as you find comfortable, though unhurried applications are essential. Alternate between surveying your outer and inner perceptions. So alternate between looking at the objects of experience and noticing your thoughts. That's what he's talking about right here. But without an abrupt sense of shifting, so we sort of ease into this change of perception. Merely glance, and this is where he's teaching us awareness. He's teaching us how the mechanism of awareness actually works. Merely glance casually around the world you perceive as outside yourself, and just kind of do that as we're talking right here. Just do what he's saying. Merely glance casually around the world you perceive as outside yourself. Then close your eyes and survey your thoughts with equal casualness. So he's saying to now close your eyes and be aware of sensations, maybe thoughts, maybe sounds. Try to remain equally uninvolved in both. So we're not giving our attention to the object of experience or the sensation of experience. Try to remain equally uninvolved in both and to maintain this detachment as you repeat the idea throughout the day. There is another way of looking at the world. The shorter exercise periods should be as frequent as possible. Specific applications of today's idea should also be made Immediately when any situation arises which tempts you to become disturbed, for these applications say, there is another way of looking at this. So even when you see an object of experience or your own trigger, your own disturbance, your own emotions, your own opinion, your own irritation, whatever those things are, there is another way of seeing this, is saying step back and put a space between you and the object of experience. Give a little space between you and the object of experience. There is another way of looking at this. You're pausing into that space of awareness. You're pausing into your natural state of being, and this place is where everything happens. This is your default. This is where the spirit begins to know itself as I. This is where the spirit can learn, this is my new default, this is my I am. This is my I amness. And now you've learned gently, you've discovered this new way of discovering the self, the capital S self that you are. It happens on Workbook Lesson 33. We just don't realize that's what's occurring right here. And this is allowing you to step back just a little bit. There's another way of looking at this, is going boom. Don't identify with the object of experience. Just allow it to be seen and don't touch it. Don't give attention to it. And then he says, remember to apply today's idea the instant you are aware of distress, just what I said, a trigger, something that is an upset. It may be necessary to take a minute or so to sit quietly and repeat the idea to yourself several times. Closing your eyes will probably help in this form of application. That's on Workbook Lesson 33, teaching you awareness. It's teaching you how to be the being. It's teaching you how to be God. It's teaching you how to listen, because from that place of quiet presence, what happens is the illusion dissolves in the presence of the light that is known. The illusion of the experience dissolves, its power dissolves, it drifts away like a melting cloud. It just drifts away into the nothingness that it was, and then all of a sudden, the person with your name on it, the I am, that recognizes itself as being, all of a sudden it gets a download, it knows what to do. It gets divine download. It knows exactly what to do right there. And that's why the last thing in this damn exercise is meditation. Meditation is not something that we do, it's something that we are. We become a living meditation. We step back and we allow awareness to be present all the time. And when things upset us, things disturb our peace, things that cause confusion or just make us be lost momentarily, if we practice meditation, you're relaxing into the being of just being aware. And you don't need to make a big deal of this. Just practice it. Do it in short moments of awareness many times until it becomes your new automatic default. It becomes your new automatic, all of a sudden, you step into this place of clarity. You step into this place of presence, and you bring all of your questions. You got something that you don't know what the answer to is, a decision to make. That's why decisions are made from this place of just resting in God. I rest in God. Workbook Lesson 109, that's how you rest in God. It's not because God is separate from you, it's because you're resting in the presence of what you are. You're resting in the beingness that everyone else is. And when a person seems to be upsetting that space, include them into this resting place. Include your thoughts, include your feelings, include your emotions, include anything that is part of this experience, this objective experience, include that situation into this space and watch it melt like an ice cube in warm water. It just melts away, and it will bring to you the clarity of what will be in harmony with divine flow. It'll give you the answers that you're looking for. It will replace chaos with peace. It will change the connection that you have with this other one when you bring them into that space of pure light, because you are joining with the totality of everything that is. Bonnie, is there questions on the board?
Just on that lesson that you read, it was like 155.
Lesson number.
Oh, 158? It was like paragraph 8 or 9. Workbook Lessons. It says Christ's vision has one law. You can't look on the Son of God and see him as a body. So all that's saying is, it's saying when you're objectifying your experience, you're giving your attention to the desire to be separate. That's why desire, attention, and meditation are so important. Desire determines how you see. If you see with the body's eyes and you see the flesh, or you recognize the spirit and you live from there. You can't see both worlds. You can only see one. You see the one that you have the highest desire for, and whatever you put your attention on is going to give you the experience of what you're looking for, of your desire. So if your attention is on the object of experience instead of resting in the holiness of your being, your attention is going to be making your brother a body and you too. And your experience is going to be just stay in character in the dream. Stay in the character of the image that you made, and you'll have the experience until you want to have peace again. Or, I mean, you can have that for a while, and it won't be upsetting, but eventually that experience brings upset. And this is a way to live in this world without being attached or without being subject to the chaos of the world. And meditation, the reason meditation is important is because this experience of stepping back and allowing this experience just to be noticed, bringing it into this space of light, it allows us to have everything that we want. It allows us to have our desire, have our attention on God or God present. I don't really like to use the word God that much anymore. The more I use God at this level, the less I identify. It's really just a word, and the more we can know that God is what Laura described. God is the experience of its experience. God is everything I see because God is in my mind, and God is what I am. And when I learn just this one tool, the most important thing I think anyone can learn in hearing God's voice and actually living the principles and the ideas, living in love, living the principles of the Course or the Course of Love or non-duality, the direct path, is learn to be aware. Learn to be aware of being aware. Learn that right there, and rest in just rest in that place of awareness, and just allow things to occur right there. Allow all your questions to be answered from the place of awareness, and it's the presence of God. It's the presence of love. It's the presence of light. Bonnie has a question.
I do, or just a little statement.
You got to use the mic. Bonnie said so.
Yes.
That's my number one rule. I love this, and I've practiced a bit of my own, listening to, hearing the voice, which I've conjured up the Christ self of myself, which is part of the creative source. and I have conversations with that. But about a week ago, within the last week, Andy and I were, I'm thinking last week, last 2 weeks, Andy and I were reading one of the workbook lessons, going through it, and I just had this realization, and I know it's true, and I know it's for everyone. It's not only listening for the voice of God, of our creative source, however you want to say it, but do we really want to follow what it tells us? And this may be for another conversation, but we don't always want to do what it says. We just kind of want to change it around to what we want. And so there's listening for the voice, but there's also being true to it and not changing it to what we want. And
Well, there is an answer
yeah.
for that too, though.
yeah.
So
So
that's just a little bit of resistance. That other part of it is only just a little bit of resistance, and we don't need to change anything. There's nothing wrong with that either. All we need to do is notice that resistance and don't do anything to change what it's doing. Just be aware of it, because it's just a little residual. It's a residual resistance to being I. It's a residual resistance. It's still lingering resistance to be I. I am the person that has a certain opinion and point of view, and what. So that little residual, you don't need to do anything. Just notice that. Just notice that, and don't touch it. Just allow it to be. Whatever happens, I don't mind. Julie?
That just happened to me this week. I thought something was healed months ago following the course, and it came up again. And I said, oh, it must be I call it residue.
Yep.
I said, there's some residue left there. I thought that was healed. And, just made me look at it again. And it wasn't as powerful as last time, the charge, but it was still there.
Yeah.
And meditated on it, and it just dissolved.
Yeah.
And doesn't mean it's not going to come up again. But I find that it's smaller and smaller and smaller all the time for me.
Mm-hmm.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that to be true in my own experience. Those charges, they can be big, and the less you give attention, the less it's just what Jesus said in this workbook lesson. If you go back and look at what he describes, he says, try to remain equally uninvolved. Try to remain uninvolved in the object of experience, whether it's the outside world or the inner world of thoughts, feelings, beliefs, healing, things that you thought you healed and you're over with. Try to be equally uninvolved and to maintain this detachment. He's teaching us right here just to be aware of the experience and don't touch it. And that is how it slowly loses its attachment until we are the I am. We are the being living the human experience and having a great time. I don't know about you, but the older I get and the closer I get to the truth, the more I'm loving this place. Not that I want to stay here, not that this is, I have an attachment to living, 120 years or whatever, but I really like having this unencumbered and this place of harmony. I live in peace most of the time, joy. I don't get upset with politics or things happening, what happens in my own life. It starts to lose its attachment to my identification with the person. And the environment, yes.
Gosh, that's such a big thing with people, the environment.
Right. All of it. This is a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream.
Bill,
Yes.
Bill, there's a couple of things online here. Therese has the one from Kristen. I'll ask this one first because it's easier. It says, I have a question. Once again, I want to know the workbook which you have used. Could you please repeat the page number which talks about meditation? Did you have one?
I
don't know
didn't
that.
use a workbook lesson for meditation. There are workbook there's text
Yeah.
about meditation. I'll just tell you, this is just Bill Free's teaching. Meditation is not what you do, it's what you are. And so Jesus talks about meditation in a different way. He says it's not necessary to spend long hours of trying to be still and quiet and watch the mind. And I say the same thing. I think that's true. But meditation is more of a living experience. You are a living meditation. Meditation is your new default of being aware of being aware of your experience and allowing everything to be included in that. Eyes open, eyes closed. Eyes closed shuts off your sensory perceptions, the objects of experience through the body's eyes. Eyes closed kind of gives you more of a body sensation awareness, and it allows you to actually, it allows me to transport to the I am just right away by closing the body's eyes. But they're both helpful because in a living meditation, we're including all of the objects of experience as what we are as well. There's this group of beings right here. This I am including. This is not separate from the I am. This is all I am. And so I don't know if that answered that. Probably not. But
And just one more little one. They said, would you ask Bill to give an example from his own life of how he gave a decision to the Holy Spirit and what happened as it melted away?
I was with my grandson yesterday. He's 14 years old, and he was supposed to be doing homework. He does homework on a computer, and his mom said, Miles, you need to be doing your homework when you're with Poppy. And he's staying here with me for a week. So this happened yesterday, and Miles didn't want to do his homework. And I let him use my computer. He worked on it 15 minutes and was done. I thought, wow, that was fast. That was his whole school day. And he didn't want to do it. And I was getting ready to jump on his ass about not doing it. And I checked into that space of presence, and I just knew I wasn't supposed to say anything. I was just supposed to not care whether he did that or not. That wasn't mine to do in the moment, and that's what happened. Normally, I'll be Mr. Disciplinarian, I'll be on his butt, but the value of his visit to me this week is not for me to make him like straight. Whatever I demonstrate to him this week is what I'm here for this week. And discipline is for another day. I've disciplined him many, many times in other occasions. So that was yesterday. And when I just sort of paused and checked in with that before I initiated my next decision, which would have been to make him do it. What's interesting is when he's at home, this kid never, ever makes up his bed. His room is a mess. Yesterday morning, he says, Poppy, I'm going to go make my bed. He made his bed. His room is clean and neat. And so he's sort of developing his own conscience of what is good for Miles. And when he's ready to do his schoolwork, he knows what he's supposed to do. His mom is still in his head. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've run out of time. Thank you all for letting me speak this morning. I love you. I bless you. Thank you, live streamers. We'll see you in Boston next week. Bye-bye. So let's everyone rise and we'll have a closing prayer. Linda, bless you, my dear.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Hi, Julie.
Hello.
Julie's going on the Camino with us.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, how many are we gonna?
Gonna stretch yourself.
Can we close the circle?
There we go.
I think are we still live streaming?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We're going to bless the tithes and offerings. Slow, divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And we give this love that we are. When I look out onto the beings that are here, and even into the camera back to you guys that are live streaming, all I see is love. I know that love is what we are, and we all know this. We all know that love is I am. We don't know how we know it, but somehow we do know that love is what we are. And these ideas ring true, and we bless them in our minds and in our hearts. And as we hold these ideas, these thoughts of truth, the truth of I am presence, as we hold it in our hearts, for every 5 minutes that we do this, in meditation or just pondering, 1,000 minds wake up. Wake up to the truth of our being. And we're grateful to be knowing this. We're grateful to be part of it. And we're grateful to have the understanding that lets us know the experience of our true self as God created us and as we are what God is. So we bless everyone here and thank you for being here. And so it is. Amen.
Beautiful.
All right. Thank you all. I love you. Bless you.
Thank you, Bill.